My very special guest today is a lifelong friend. I first heard him play when he was around 9 years old. In fact, I think he won the Guitar Center drum-off at the age of 9 years old. Maybe he had a fake ID, I'll find out. But what made him really special in my mind as a child prodigy and throughout his career was his musicianship, his ability to swing regardless of the style at an incredibly early age. Welcome the amazing Thomas Pridgen. Thank you for joining me today, Thomas.
Hey, Tom, how you doing?
I've known you for a good part of your life and always felt like a grand related papa here, seeing your growth and all the amazing things that you've done. But what do you think, gave you that sensibility, the musical sensibility at such an early age? Because it was different than other young protege drummers that I've seen come up through the years.
Well, at that age, I think I had my grandmother. So my grandmother always was, critiquing me, trying to give me good criticism. And growing up in church, I always had people, telling me maybe you're playing too loud, or try this, or play it like Butch Galloway, or, even when I got older, some people wanted me to play stuff like John Bonham. Or, when I was in high school, people asked me to play stuff kind of like Tane sometimes. So I would dig into what made these drummers that people talked about tick. So sometimes I would look at, a lot of the legend drummers and see all their influences and not realize who their influences might be, So, I was a big fan of Vinnie Colaiuta. And then as I progressed in my fandom of Vinnie Colaiuta, I started noticing how he was influenced by drummers like Tony Williams and Stuart Copeland, and also like Steve Gadd. And so what I would do is I would go and listen to the drummers that drummers were inspired by. And with that, and taking a lot of criticism and having a lot of drum teachers, I kind of got molded into being a musician who can traditionally play all different styles in a traditional basis. But I think sometimes you have to listen to the guys that are legends to be able to understand those styles fully. Like, to really understand those styles, you have to listen to the legends of those eras or those times. So I just spent a lot of time studying a lot of music and musicians, and I was like, pre-internet. So I turned into like a really obsessive kid over my favorite drummers at the time.
You're talking about pre-internet, but you were able to get DVDs as you were growing up of various drummers that you could explore and see what they were doing. So important for young drummers watching you today, who you are their idol, hearing you talk about the people that you learned from and even the people that they learned from. How important that lineage is to really go back to see kind of where it came from,
Yes.
When you were in high school, I remember you sent me a tape, which I still have somewhere, and it was kind of like, hey, check out what I'm doing. And it was obviously influenced by Miles Davis, Jimmy Cobb. I mean, you were in a quartet, I think, pretty much copying exactly what they were doing and doing it really well. But what got you into that experience, so deeply into the jazz area in high school?
Well, in high school, I went to Berkeley High School in California. It's like next to Cal Berkeley. And they've always been known to have like a really good jazz program in the area. So like the students, sometimes you're supposed to live in the area. But since the students have been going there so long, the musicians and the artists that also go to the school, they recruit their classmates. So I kind of got recruited by some horn players. One of the guys' name is Ambrose Akamuzuri. He's a big trumpet player. He's like, man, you should go to Berkeley High. I lived in a different county. And so I went to Berkeley High and I met a lot of young musicians who were into like, jazz and their instruments as heavily as I was into the drums. So when I was there, I would hang out with the trumpet player sometimes, and maybe their parent would drive and they'd be scatting all the horn lines to like Roy Hargrove. Or, as his solo was going on, they would be scatting all of Miles Davis's solos. And that's how I came up looking at drummers like Dennis Chambers or, Liddell from John P. Key, or all the big gospel guys. I can remember feel for feel everything they played on those records. And so the last thing for me to understand was the style of music, because I wasn't coming from, like, I didn't grow up in a jazz house. So I had to like understand and learn how they were tipping, how they were feathering the bass drum on certain things, like dynamics, how to set up a solo, how to set up, trading fours, and how it's cool to like maybe repeat the last phrase of the horn player on the drums, and playing the drums is a melodic instrument, not just a percussive instrument. So I just was studying at that school a lot of jazz with those guys, and they were more advanced in that style than I was. And so I think that was very helpful for me, because even now my city is a very big jazz city.
I think when I talk to a lot of church drummers, there's the shed side of what they do, and which is one side of it, the chops, the gospel chops. And then there's the feeling that comes along with that almost like outweighs it or weighs it heavily on the other end. So it's not just about how fast you can go. It's about how fast you can go, but you still have to have the feeling in your playing.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel that experience come along as you were growing up? Like, 'cause you always had that fearless approach.
Yeah, I felt like, church gives you an understanding of how music can move someone. Like, especially church music, it's so moving, from the key changes to the rhythms to the dynamics to maybe even the sound of the voice. You know what I mean? And jazz is also as expressive. I think that the difference is that what I learned from playing jazz and playing, I'll put gospel in there too. But what I learned playing jazz is that I learned how to listen better. Like, I learned how to listen better than the average musician, just because like sometimes I have to not play to hear what they're doing. And just the idea of wanting to hear what someone is doing. You know what I mean? Like, I want to hear you. You know what I mean? That'll carry, a long way. When you looking at a singer and you're watching their voice, literally they're like flubbling over the words because it's too fast. Or maybe this time he wants to sing the verse, in a somber voice. Like, you have to be listening to catch these things. And I think that's been a big thing about my playing that people always say. They be like, bro, you like, even though you got chops, bro, you hella musical. They always tell me that. They like, even though you got a bunch of chops, bro, you really musical and you hear the music. And that's, I always strive to be like, one of the sickest dudes in the world chop wise, but like musically, I feel like I can sit and play next to anyone musically. Like, that's not a drummer. I can go sit in any setting and do well, and I think that I have to give props to my grandmother and all the people who was on me, and Dougal Chancellor and Dave Garibaldi. They were like big teachers of mine, and they didn't care how much I could play around the drums. They still was like, one of the things that Dougal said, he's like, if it's a short note, hit a short cymbal. If it's a long note, hit a long cymbal. And so these are some of the things that, it's some of the things that you can't just learn just based on watching drummers on the internet sometimes, is like certain musical tricks, to make sure that you always sound good. Like, your favorite drummers, they got chops, but they also sound good, as musicians.
Often what you don't play is just as important as what you do play, correct? That's the hardest thing
Also,
sometimes.
That's facts. Yeah.
We had Abe Laboriel Sr. and Jr. out here a couple of years ago in a band, and we did an interview, and I thought Abe Sr. came up with a great comment. Everybody was talking about what's really important for a drummer to learn to transition from a great drummer to a great musician. And he said, musicians are professional listeners, and that's our main job, is to listen. You can learn everything else, but if you're not listening, you're not communicating. And so many of the young drummers today are growing up in a one-way conversation with the internet, if you will, on YouTube. They're missing out on that, And you bring it up in a really interesting way. It's not even It's listening to the rhythm section and listening to the singer and participating in the song.
Yeah. Moving the idea forward. Because
Yeah.
you've created art together.
You talked about solo, building a solo. Let's mention that for a minute. How would you suggest a drummer go about doing that? Because I judged a drum contest recently, and it was not good. I mean, they all apparently missed the opportunity to sit down with a private instructor, as they all showed you like 8 bars of what they just practiced, as opposed to trying
Yeah.
to build a musical event. But when a solo comes up, what are you thinking about in your mind?
When you say it that way, I think of the drum off. And the reason why I say that is because the drum off has a very particular way of soloing. Like this, the way drummers like approach the drum off, it's always usually the same. You know, they're gonna do a quiet part, they're gonna do a double bass part, they're gonna do a tribal ostinato part, and then they're gonna end it on a bunch of cymbals. They're gonna do some tricks where they catch the cymbal, do some twirls. But like for me, it's like when I think of soloing, um, I don't know. I think it has changed in a certain way because I've thought in those terms also. I've also looked at the Mickey D solo from Motorhead or the Travis Barker where he goes upside down or the Iron Maiden or the Dennis Chambers or the Terry Bozzio solos. So I've come from all those places, but like I feel like with a drum solo, I just I'm in a middle spot with music where like I appreciate where people are going, but I also understand that like where we've been won't ever happen again. So it's like, when I look at solos, I feel like now at this point, a solo is just you playing by yourself. You know what I mean? So if you're playing by yourself, you don't have a beat dictating what you play. You don't have a certain singer singing. You don't have a guitar player soloing. So I try to jump out the box completely. You know what I mean? At this point, and I'm not saying that you got to do like drum gimmicks, but just like as far as like rhythms, you know what I mean? Like we're the most rhythm person on stage. So if anything, we should be playing cool rhythms, and cool beats. And I feel like, as musicians, we've had to play with other people so long that you have drummers who like have more information than computer programming, and they still try to play like computer programming all the time. Or let me play like a computer programmer better than a computer programmer. So like I feel like you can encompass all these different aspects of drumming, but not be so compartmentalized where it's like, oh, this is a jazz guy. I don't know. I'm at a weird place with music. I don't because I'm always reaching. So like as a drum solo, I just at this point would say it's playing by yourself. I can't tell the youngsters not to play a bunch of linear fills and play dynamics because like who am I to say anything? It's all like art. That guy who has a snare drum and he's just like playing a snare and he's scraping it on the ground. It's like that's expression, even though it's like a different expression, it's still expression. I think I'm more of a critique when it comes to drums when I watch people play to music. You know what I mean? Because I feel like you can see intent when people play with music. You know what I mean? You can see if the person is listening to the bass player. Like, or if the bass player is playing straight and you playing a bunch of hi-hat triplets while he's playing straight, I just in my mind, like, damn, you're not listening to the bass player. Like, regardless, because y'all gotta be a team in somewhat. The drum solo, I don't know. I don't pay attention to it as much. Like I appreciate what people do, but like I don't really hear that many drum solos. Let's be real. Like you don't hear a lot of drum solos. Like I watch people play a lot of tracks. I might see people shed over some synthesized thing online, but I don't see the old school drum solo that much. It's kind of rare.
Where are you stretching out at this point?
Well, right now I got a record with a bunch of friends from here that we're not called the Memorials, we're called Big Tripping. And it's kind of like it's a quartet with a rapper, and we do like hip hop, jazz, and like we did a record a year ago during all the pandemic stuff. So we're trying to finish this record, and then like my mind drum wise now after like being out of a pandemic is so different too. Like right now, I don't even. Right now, I just see the drums as this like. See, I'm hearing a bunch of sounds on the drums that I haven't got to play on a record. Is what's going on. Like I'm at a place where I've done a bunch of rock records, and I fit into somebody will call me and do a metal record, and it'll sound like metal. You'll be like, Godly, Dave Lombardo came out and played double bass on this. You know what I mean? And I can still do that. But like, sometimes, and I've been touring with Residente, which is, reggaeton. So I go and do that. But like now I'm at a place where I want to sit down and kind of get back into creating sounds. I did two new plugins for Mixwave. One is like a John Bonham type of plugin with a 26-inch bass drum, 13, 16, 18 toms, big old cymbals. And it has like doo-doo, like, real big rock tones. And then the second week of recording all the drums, we did a hip hop plugin. And the hip hop plugin is just like my vibe. You know what I mean? It's just like tight snares, trashier cymbals. Some of the cymbals are cracked. And it's a tight sound with a boomier bass drum. And I enjoyed myself playing all those different hi-hats and bongos and splashes, just being able to explore on the kit and still play my stuff, the same way I play, but getting to play it on a different kit. But I haven't got to record like that. So in a few months, we're going to go to the studio and I'm going to start experimenting with new sounds. But I've been mainly just like on the idea of like, it's time to come of like have a new thing, like something new. And so I feel like you get to these places in music where you have to like stop. You have to do something, go fishing, go like, take your mom on a vacation, you know what I mean? And these things bring like inspiration towards you. Cause I haven't stopped working. I just did a drum clinic in Puerto Rico. My band played Puerto Rico. We just did Spain, Mexico, all these different places, but it makes it where when I'm traveling, I can't sit down and actually create because I'm moving. So now that I have a little time, my plan is to like really dive into this hip hop sound. And now I don't want to say hip hop sound, but that's the best way to describe the tones to somebody who, doesn't really know. It's just like, I just say hip hop just because it's the vibe. But I just want to just come up with a different sound, just that's not been used, that it's something that sometimes you get to these places where you try to create sounds and then you can't play the same way. You know what I mean? So I also have to be mobile so I can still play how I play, but have a bunch of sounds. So I've been playing a bunch of different snare drums on both sides, mingled in with toms and bongos. And I just been exploring basically, but I haven't really came out with what I'm doing. So it's kind of...
I feel a Thomas Terry party coming up here at Drum Channel in the big room. He can put all of his gear in there.
Yeah, it would be tight to go there for like 2 days and just like set up a few different kits with him. You know what I mean? Just have like change the drum set day. You know what I mean? And
he's got his drum set. Cool. We got the drum set set up here. We got all of his percussion gear also. He's in Japan at the moment, but as soon as he gets back, you mentioned Residente just in passing there. A lot of people might not know about that gig. This is the size venues that you play. And how did you get that gig? Was there an audition involved?
No. We're all like, a lot of people in like, South America, they're like mad connected. We all know each other. If you play, with a couple of Latin guys, we all are a tight knit crew, friends. And so in passing, somebody was like, you want to do this? We need a drummer. And I went out and I knew the keyboard player because he went to Berkeley and we all knew each other from random places. But we just went out. I've been doing that for 5 years now. And our shows are the biggest show I think we've played has been to 200,000 people. And that was with that's not a festival. That's just like our show. And like we do big shows, but I think I'm really blessed just because the whole crew and everybody involved with the band and the artists, we all like our tight knit crew. Like we talk to each other all the time. So when we go on tour, it's like we enjoy it and we play better because we enjoy each other. And we get to shake the world up, with what we do. But I've been doing that, and then big tripping and doing drum clinics and doing a bunch of records with people. I just did a metal record called Spirit World. We're on our second record, and so I'm playing double bass all through that record, and which is crazy because people don't always hear me play double bass. And then I've been playing on a lot of tracks with a lot of people, and don't really realize. I was telling my girl, I was like, I don't realize I do so much. Like Lizzo's record just came out, and I'm all over that.
There's a reason for it, by the way. The reason why these guys want you, because you produce for what they want. And you can't
I just forget.
You can't just say with 200,000 people was the biggest place we played. I mean, I've never heard in my entire life of somebody playing to more than 200,000 people as one gig. That's unbelievable.
It feels like you surfing a wave. You could feel the energy of everybody, but you also have to perform, and you feel like you're surfing a wave, Loki.
Talked about Berkeley a little bit and your friends from Berkeley. I remember when you had the opportunity to go Berkeley, which was not an inexpensive place to get into for sure.
Yeah.
And you actually got a scholarship at an early age, I believe, as I recall talking to your grandmother at the time. And we were exciting. I think you were maybe even too young to get to Berkeley at that. How old were you when you started there?
I had a full ride to Berkeley when I was 15.
And then talk about that experience and how important you think that is for young drummers to have, one, to have private instruction, two, to go to higher level education.
I think it depends on who you are. I think that a lot of guys go to Berkeley and never stay, So I think that it's all on you. I think it is important to definitely take lessons. But I felt like, honestly speaking, that I don't know, I think Berkeley is a little expensive at this point in time. You know what I mean? I don't think people should be paying $60,000 a year. I think it's insane. You know what I mean? Because it's, as a musician, I've never had anyone ask me, have I went to Berkeley to get a gig ever, So I feel like it depends on who you are. Like if you want to teach, you have to have a master's in California to be able to teach. So for that reason, I think it's amazing. You should definitely go to Berkeley because you get an amazing master's program, and you also get to be around a lot of bad musicians. So your musicianship will be better when you go teach. Or MP&E. I think I was studying performance, and so performance, I feel like, I don't know, I sometimes think about it. I'm like, what would my life be if I went to MI? It's another music school, but it's not in Boston. Like, what would my life be if I went to the new school? So it's a lot of different music colleges. And even Berkeley, like the Spanish Berkeley is a lot different from Boston Berkeley. So, it's a lot of ways to study music, and I'm pro study music. You know what I mean? I don't know if I would, only support one music program. I support music programs around the country. Like, I think we need more music schools everywhere. I just don't know if you belong in Boston. You know what I mean? You might belong in LA.
I meant more upper level education, not necessarily Berkeley as a specific school, but just pursuing out of high school.
I think going to school for music is amazing. I think it's a blessing. But I don't know, because with this talk has been happening with a lot of Berkeley students, because we all wonder, because a large crazy part about the Berkeley experience is that you always run into somebody who went to Berkeley. So that is the craziest thing. Like right now, I'm on the road with 3 other people who went to Berkeley, and even randomly, I'm always around people who go to Berkeley, but it's all on you, man. I had a crazy experience in life. And I also, my favorite drummer in the world was Tony Williams, and he was on tour at 14. So I think it's all about like who you are personally.
Tony, what is the one thing you took out of your experience when you first heard Tony that kind of blew your mind? Because I know I first heard him when he was 17.
Yeah. I think the thing that blew me away about Tony, it was how meticulous he was on the simple things. Like, he would spend time doing double stroke rolls, like that was the gig, And I think, to me, that has made me understand the importance of the little things, like making sure your left hand sounds good, utilize breathing, making sure you sound good on this instrument. You mentioned Abe Laboriel, and one of the things I love about Abe Laboriel is he makes the drums sound good. Like when he hits the drums, they sound good. And same with Tony Williams, like his touch and the stuff he's playing is always nice also, but his touch is like no one can ever touch the drums like that. He sounds like butter. And so what I got from that is the meticulousness. And then, speaking on Berklee, I think one of the dope advantages as a drummer at Berklee is that they teach from the Alan Dawson book, which is amazing because Alan Dawson is, I never met Alan Dawson, but from the readings of his book that we study at Berklee, it's very it's really I won't say it's really it's one of those books that if you look real deep into it and you practice long enough, you start realizing this is all to make you sound better. It's not about it is about the coordination of it, but it's mainly about, let me show you how to play drums. Let me show you how to sound good playing drums. And I don't know if any of the other books cater to that as much, as, making your hands sound good, as far as, the rudiments is making you do, over the kick drum pattern. I think that just was life-changing for my plan, just to get into that Alan Dawson book. It just made me a better player coming from a gospel-based thing because, you'll learn about majority of the rudiments, but it's crazy when you go and you start learning how, you start looking at all the rudiments, and this is giving you a formula to make these rudiments that people have been giving you not seem so boring. Like it literally hips up the rudiments. And so I think that's such an amazing thing that he came up with, and that's his teacher. So I could see how the correlation between Alan Dawson and Tony is, because when you hear Tony just play a single stroke roll, you'd be like, no one can do that. And you'd be like, why? Why is a single stroke roll so nice? And it's because he spends hours doing it. You know what I mean? So that's why that Alan Dawson book is so killer, is that it makes you want to keep playing because it's inspiring, but it's hip. It's a hip idea, as far as, how to practice rudiments.
Did you do the rudimental ritual?
I did the rudimental. I learned the rudimental ritual at Berklee. And then after Berklee, I just kept going with it, and I kept adding to it, and I just kept going as farther and farther, adding certain notes, changing, putting certain things on other sides of the beats. I just started really going crazy the rudiment ritual. And I think that, that was one of the blessings I got. The guy who got me into that was John Ramsey. He's a Berklee teacher, and I really appreciate him for that, man. That was big. And he showed us all that. That was one of our big tests at the end of the year, the rudiment ritual.
We have John Ramsey doing the rudimental ritual on Drum Channel, if anybody wants to check that out there. It is beyond belief, I think. John also has a series of lessons he put on, which is the requirements that you need to get into Berklee or pretty much any higher level education. Because the kids that are in high school, they don't know what should I be learning? How good do I have to get into a college music major? So he broke all that down for us. But the rudimental ritual is a piece. One, you have to have an unbelievable memory, and two, you've got to have really good chops. So I can just see you doing it and adding your own 2 cents to it. That sounds like
I go crazy on it. And yeah, I've completely transformed. I low key could write. I could write the other book for Alan Dawson on the retro. There's so much stuff on there.
You mentioned your left hand a little bit earlier. Speaking of being left-handed, which you naturally are, correct? I remember.
I write left-handed, but I throw the ball right-handed.
Oh, okay.
So
Did
and
you
I
ever
kick
think about?
right-footed.
Did you ever think of setting your drums up either way, or do you think that's drummers should learn to play more open-handed today than they used to?
I mean, coming from a right hand perspective, I think so. But I also feel I'm so hesitant on telling people what they should do because I'm hesitant on telling people what they should do. I don't think it works in this time. I think it used to work. I don't think it works anymore to tell anybody what they should do as far as playing is because I see people who like, I feel like the direction that people invoke on people musically sometimes can be very stifling, especially for kids. So like I have this guy that I look at, his name is Pakal. He plays like big old African drums, you know what I mean? And like with these huge sticks, and he plays them like we play, like gospel chops. And sometimes if I watch his technique is completely different from what anyone ever told me I should do. But it's amazing. I watch these kids in Egypt and they play rototoms and they play a kind of a Doombeck one. It's like a 1-3 type 5. And like they have these sticks that are made out of plastic and they create music that is amazing. I feel like what we should do is stifling. It's been a little bit stifling as far as like creating new. I think to create new, you kind of have to let one of these generations just do what they want. You know what I mean? It has to happen because if not, everyone will literally be like, that's the problem with the internet. The internet is a lot of the same. It's like, you should do this. Well, he does this. This is how you get on. This is how you do this. This is how you do that. And what I've learned is from looking at all the tech geniuses to looking at all these NFT geniuses is there's no should. It's just up in the air now. It's like you got, Danny Cuba playing he's playing four-way ostinato congas, and then you got Horacio who literally threw the rules away. Then you got, you know what I mean? You have all these guys that the drum set alone is the instrument where someone said, no, I'm not about to hire 4 people. You know what I mean? I'm going to play this all myself. So right now I've been trying in my own psyche to get out of what you should do or telling people what they should do. It's weird because I don't think it's helpful. I think now at this point, I feel like, I don't know. I think it all you have to go inside of what you think this is because it's an art form. Like I tell some of the guys who want to be battle drummers, you know what I mean? It's this whole idea of battle drumming on the internet right now. I'm like, you know what? Like if you guys don't want to have a gig and you only want to be battle drummers, that is your art form and that's okay. That's like X Games, none of those people thought X Games, you see the guy on a dirt bike, you never thought he would be an Olympian. You know what I mean? He's like, nah, I just like dirt bikes. Your parents is like, how is that going to help? He's like, I'm going to be Olympian. There's no dirt bikes in the Olympics. And now you look at the world and it's dirt bikes in the Olympics. Or the people who told all the gospel chops guys, man, you're never going to get a gig because all you want to do is play all over the drums. And then you look at now, and it's like all the gospel chops drummers have influenced the whole new generation of everything. Like you look at the internet and it's impossible to say that gospel chops and just the drummers who came out of there, the drummers from church, basically, and that style has influenced all styles of drumming at this point. So I don't know. I feel at this point, if you want to play left-handed, great. If you want to play congas right here on your right hand, you want to play the hi-hat over here, do it. Like, I think I think for me personally, I wish I was fluid as I am right-handed playing left-handed. Reason why is that I can play more things without crossing my hands. So now I didn't say anything, but my drum set now is regular drum set, but the toms, they descend high to low from the ride to the crash. So when I play open hand, that's the first note. The first note is a high tom. like a piano. And so it goes right to left. And then I still have 4 toms. So it's like I feel like you have to, Mike Mitchell is one of the people who inspires me the most, just because he don't have a rule. You know what I mean? He's like, I'm about to put all these keys on a key ring and I'm gonna tape it to the drum. And I'm like, that's gonna sound like crazy. And then he just does it and he kills it. And so I think this generation needs space. I think they do. Because man, they're doing something different that even we didn't do.
Let's get you and Mike and Devin down here.
That's the plan. Me and Devin has already talked about it. That is absolutely the plan.
Soon as he gets off the tour, which I guess they're rehearsing for now.
Let's do it.
And you mentioned an important thing about all those gospel drummers you're talking about are playing gigs that they didn't get because they have gospel chops. They got it because of their musical sensibility. Tell me what you're doing with your mixed wave plugins. That would be really cool.
Okay. Well, Mixed Wave is a company that does software and instrument plugins for drums. And we did mine first, and mine features my whole full drum set with cymbals and multiple different velocities. And we've had it out for a year now, and it's been doing really, really, really well. And so a lot of producers can go and put my drum sound and put it in their DAW and their computer VST and be able to play my drum sound from their keyboards or from V drums or E-kits. And so that's been the new wave. So I've done one, and then I have a couple other ones coming out in a year or so.
Are you into E-kits at all yourself? You got an electronic drum set?
Yes, I do. I have a Gilwa electronic drum set, and I have a bunch of stuff from like Roland, but I mainly like programming on like beat machines. You know what I mean? So but I do play E-kits in the house, but not much outside. I think I'd rather take a drum set outside, but indoors I play E-kit a lot.
Now, I know you probably don't want to get that much busier in your home studio, but are you doing tracks sometimes if people want to send things into you?
Yeah, I've been sending a lot of tracks back and forth. That was been a lot of stuff that I've been doing during the pandemic, is just recording and doing lessons via Skype. I like the session work. The session work is different though when you're by yourself than when you're in a studio with another engineer. Because when you're by yourself, you get super critical. And then sometimes, because sometimes I have to do audio and video. So I get all in my head and critical, and I'm listening to the drum tone, and it's tough. So I enjoy doing it at home, but I also enjoy doing it at regular studios also.
I've heard that from so many great drummers, and you would think it would be just the opposite. It's like, doing it at home takes me all day because I do it 10 different, I'm never happy. If you're in the studio and the engineer's happy, the producer's happy, you're done in 2 takes. But at home, like, everybody's more critical. It just shows the drummer's psyche, I think. It's built into us. We want everything to be, we're our worst critics sometimes.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And how can people get a hold of you? Through your website?
People get a hold of me through my email. My email is thomaspridgenmusic@gmail.com. I'm old school, man. I just go straight to the email. I like social media, so I just started another Instagram. My Instagram is thomaspridgen.eth, which is ETH. So thomaspridgen.eth. And I'm on YouTube. I think my YouTube channel is Thomas Pridgen, so you'll see videos of me there. But yeah, contact me through email is best.
Yep. And it'll be a life-changing experience. I encourage you. We're definitely advocates on Drum Channel of private instruction, in addition to everything that you can do on the site, which and you can search Thomas on the website too, because there are a lot of things you've done with us through the years too, and many more to come up now that we're all kind of coming back again. Okay, cool. We got to do the thing with Devin and Mike. That'd be amazing. Oh yeah, no, that's being planned right now. As soon as we possibly can, I'm on it. It's going to happen. Okay. And we're on it here. We're going to see you next week, Tuesday at 5 o'clock here. Again, Thomas, thank you so much. We'll be in touch. See you later. Okay, peace.